Hi all, Kadrina here. Today we're going to be discussing a lovely book called The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay. This is her debut novel, and I picked it up with my December 2018 Book of the Month book, so we're finally beginning to catch up. If you want to try the Book of the Month, my referral link is below. You get a free book, I get a free book. It's a win-win for both of us. Anyway, moving right on into this book. So I've already stated The Far Field is a debut novel by Madhuri Vijay, a woman born and raised in Bangalore, India, where part of this book is set. It runs 432 pages long and divided into 6 sections and 38 chapters. This is the tale of self-discovery as a woman goes in war-torn Kashmir to find someone from her past. Loki, I assume this mysterious figure is her father from the description due to how it typically goes. Turns out it was a man her mother was married with, so half correct, I suppose. As a small aside, this book has sensitive material such as suicide and sex, especially a couple of sex scenes involving minors. So if you're sensitive to any of that, this is not the book for you. Anyway, the main character and the point of view character is Shalini, whose name you'll find out way too late in the novel due to her mother calling her little beast for the first quarter. It sets the tone for the novel. It shows how bland and tired the main character is. Typically, I don't give books ratings, and by that I mean up to this point I have left ratings up on my Goodreads profile and nothing more, but let's give this book a rating of 4 stars for scenery, 4.5 stars for storytelling, 3 stars for general characters, and 2 stars from the main character, being an actual character. Before I get into this, let's discuss a little bit more of the book overall. I liked it and thought the scenery and the way Ms. Vijay described India and Kashmir as captivating and very well done. I thought she did a very good job of highlighting the political struggle between Muslims and Hindu people. She didn't make it one or the other as being necessarily bad. There are villains and heroes from both sides. It was just complicated. And because of that, I thought I learned a lot about the Hindu culture. To be frank, India has been pretty low on the totem pole for countries and culture centers that I cared to study, with pretty much anywhere else holding my attention more, so it's a good introductory book for me because it took me to the world I don't usually go outside of the occasional Bollywood film. Her introduction to folklore using Bashir Ahmed, the traveling salesman, was enticing and informative. I love folklore after all. It's my sweet spot to read it and to create it. Honestly, I think it was brilliant use of that character. The other characters are a little bit more cookie cutter, but I blame the narrator for that. So let's get into the main character. Shalini is a privileged Indian woman with an education despite not being good at school. Her father is a successful business owner on try number 2 after failing his first business. Her grandfather was the one that invested in him, while her mother never went to college as she was the 3rd child and the only girl. Nevertheless, she is very privileged and has opportunities handed to her. Remember that as we go through the rest of the review. Shalini starts and ends this book by saying she is 30 years old and knows nothing. She has a lot of learning to do, which is great. And then you get into the story. So I have a few problems with this main character. First of all, she really doesn't do much or have much of a personality. We learn that she's been floating since her mother died, with drugs and meaningless sex consuming her nights and days for the most part. But even then, she doesn't seem to move any of the plot forward other than having the drive to find Bashir Ahmed and enough to get on a train to go find him. She has no real plan and lets the other characters take the lead. To be fair, she has a cold, volatile mother who would have mood swings between depression, active and playful, and attacking, and a missing workaholic father. You will see this in the fact she will attach herself to any and everyone and needs to acceptance from complete strangers. One example is how there is a guy sleeping in her seat and she asks him to move. Despite him being rude to her, she imagines him as her husband and the elderly couple in the cabin, her parents. She is so invested in this 5-minute fantasy that it stings when she makes jabs at her, and she feels silly. Like, girl, you should. She does this through the entire book, so she sabotages all of her relationships. Personally, I would normally find this brilliant, but the lack of self-awareness and the lack of growth in this book makes it hard. So a little backtracking. This book does not have a happy ending or a resolution. That's perfectly fine, especially when it comes to political pieces like this, where in real life there's no real resolution. There is only survival. I'm okay with that. I don't need her saving the day or somebody else saving her. But you have this book about healing and finding oneself, and the only conclusion the character can draw from this book is that they're a coward. It's a waste of a book. So the main events of this book take place when Shalini is 24 years old, or in flashbacks as she was younger. It alternates between the two until it catches up. As a little spoiler, she gets a Muslim man arrested on false charges towards the end of the book, and is too much of a coward to speak up and advocate for this man who let her into his family. She waits 6 years to speak up. Yeah. And in between, she works for an environmental firm part-time. A job she was never enthusiastic about to begin with, and thought it was pointless before starting this adventure. Yeah. Honestly, it might have been a bit too uplifting if she had decided to advocate for missing Muslim men to repent for her unintentional actions, but nah man, she's going to speak up about it now. Forget any protests in the past. Forget burying her head in the sand. It never actually says what Spark was after 6 years. Why are you no longer a coward? It makes the whole tale pointless because there's no self-growth or actual learning that the reader can see and for the reader to go through themselves, except for discovering she's a coward, which she tells us. The other thing that bothers me about this book is the sex in this book. I'm not going to try and sex shame Shalini because not even fictional women deserve that. But we learn pretty early on that Shalini is pretty open. As early as the first chapter, it is later addressed that the many men in her life would solicit her mother in front of her, like one of her father's employees. And this translates to her being disqualified from a swim meet when she was an adolescent, like under the age of 13, for giving another young child a blowjob. It also translates into her flip-flopping back and forth between guys, paying attention to her. However, like the ending, it doesn't have any explanation because her mother shuts down sexual advances. Even when she's having an emotional affair with Bashir Ahmed, it is never physical. I feel like it would have made more sense if she had been there, if they had gotten physical, because it would have lined up with being her mother's confidant. But that's just my opinion and probably my desire to bring out more facets to this one-dimensional character. Anyway, that's all for now. Next up, we're going to be reviewing The Winter Sister by Megan Collins, and there will probably be a bit more of my own writing as a brief intermission, since the next book after that one is a little bit bigger. Then we will be getting around to the 13 Reasons Why. This is mostly on hold as I write the script out and decide how I want to talk about the character. That's all for now. See you next time.